What's up YouTube, it's Clormo with another Waveform tutorial, and today I'm going to be talking about the Keymap editor and the Zone Waveform Editor. If this is the first time you're seeing one of my tutorials in Logic Pro X, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, check the previous videos, give me feedback on those, make requests, make comments, insult me if you want, I don't care. But either way, that's what I'm going to be talking today. And to try to keep the time of this video manageable, I'll just jump right into Logic Pro X and let's go right into the source edit window. This is where I stopped in the last video. I had two zones with two distinctive samples. They're right here, represented by this rectangular or square shapes. I made them a little bit more squared. And this is the Zone Waveform Editor. This is the Keymap editor. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. The first thing that I want to say right away is talk about the Keymap editor to start. And the first thing I want to say is that the Keymap editor will display all sample zones for the group that you have selected currently. I only have one group. I only work with one group. Stopped that in the previous video, and I have two different samples, and that's what I'm seeing. Depending on how many groups I have with how many samples, it's the display that's going to be represented in the Keymap editor. The size and the location of the rectangle will indicate the key and velocity range for each associated zone that I noted in the previous video, which is controlled by these four guys down here. And let me just do a little recap, right? Let's I chose this zone, that's the sample, and see, as I added the shape here graphically of the square, I get a corresponding set of values. And if I decide to do the same for the other, I'll get the same thing. And then down here I can set my limits for those zones. So I'm just gonna leave it however I did now. So now let me go and just re-explain that real quick. The left and right will control the low key and the high key parameters respectively. Top and bottom will control the low and high velocity respectively. The scroll bar that's located here below the Keymap editor is going to let me zoom in and out and see any zones that are out of the zoom range. Right now I'm actually in the full range. It's all the octave, all the keys. If I were to drag either the left or the right, I can zoom in and work in a tighter space and, you know, make more zones, controllable zones, whatever you want to do based on what I've taught you. Let me just play a few of those keys. Nothing's gonna happen because of the parameters that I have. I'm not triggering. It's kind of weird that you see. It's just a little recap from last time, and really that's all about recap. The only thing new that I want to add here is that if you are in any of the zones and you right click, you have all these other options here. Pretty standard, pretty self-explanatory. You can cut, copy, and either of the zones and its parameters, and you can then later paste them either to an existing group, which would be this one, to a new group, which will create a new group, obviously. And I'll do that. There you go. Created a new group and paste it, but I didn't copy, so I'll delete. I'll first copy, paste to a new group, There you go. I only have that one zone for that group. I'm gonna delete it. But you can see here, as I choose either or group, I'm gonna see whatever zones I have on it. I'm gonna delete. And I can also delete one of the zones, but I'm not gonna do that. Exchange sample, what that's gonna just do is bring me back to the import browser. I'm gonna show that, and I can change the sample of that zone for whatever else I want. I'm just actually gonna do that. I'm gonna select, let's see, go select that A5. Takes a little while, and there it is. But my low key kept it as the original key, root key, whatever root key I had for the previous zone. So keep that in mind. If you exchange a sample, you're just changing the sample and effectively changing the data here in the waveform. It will eliminate your loop region like I showed last time. And it will just do that, just exchange the sample, but everything else will remain the same. And you can also either reassign. You don't have to copy and paste. If you have an existing group, you can reassign or assign to a new group, which is kind of weird because copy and pasting to a new group seems like a few extra steps that you can just achieve with one here, but I haven't figured that one out in great detail, so bear with me for a second. So that's pretty much it for the Keymap editor. Nothing really that new other than the command click controls. Now the waveform editor down here, this is where I'm gonna spend a little bit more time in this tutorial for. So the waveform display of the audio is gonna be here at the bottom. As I said, I've seen this before, right, in other synths and other areas of Logic Pro X that show you a waveform. This is just the waveform shade of the audio. This is what it's known as the Zone Waveform Editor because you can edit, fine-tune what you can do here. Zones can be selected in the Keymap editor and you will see a different corresponding waveform at the bottom. A note that I want to make here is that if the additive or spectral engines are in use, the waveform display will show the resynthesized sound amplitude envelope rather than the original sample. In essence, that's what I have here because that's how I brought these guys. You see I have added and spectral are available here at the top. That's the reason why, and this is gonna be covered in the next set of videos. I'm gonna cover the additive in the very next video and then the spectral in the video after that one. Another note that I want to make is that when you have morphing enabled, and that's going to be seen later on when I get into the morphing parameters. It's a few videos still before I get to that. When you have morphing enabled, you get other lines that are going to show here with numbers over the waveform, and that's just going to signify that you have morphing enabled and by how much. But we're going to see that later, so I don't want to confuse you too much with that. You also have these two lines, and I showed this in the previous video. You have a start and end point of my sample, and I can fine-tune that. I already had changed that, and you notice when I exchange the sample here, that reset it and put it all the way over here, but I can just change it to whatever I want. I can also, while we're at it, I can also zoom in and out as with the Keymap editor. Then I can also add the loop lines or the region loop lines, and that's gonna be determined by this loop mode drop down menu. If I have something other than none, right, I'm gonna have then a set of loop markers that are gonna let me determine that loop region for that particular zone. So if I'm going to sustain, those are kept through anything other than none. One thing that's new here though is that you can place both loop regions. This is something that I didn't say in the last video, that's why it's new. You can place them on top of one another, and actually when I brought them up you saw that they were on top of one another. If I do this, what I'm gonna do is create a sustain point other than a loop region. But keep in mind this note, this is not possible if you import something in sample mode only. So now I'm going to talk about the waveform display parameters. They're not visible here. The only one that's visible is this play button, and this is just going to turn the automatic audio previewing on or off. So when I select zone, it's going to play automatically. If I have it deselected, it's not going to play it automatically. So you can choose if you want to do it or not. To me, it's a little bit annoying, but anyway. Now there's a series of buttons that are not going to be visible unless you have a something in continuous or sustain. And for that you need to bring something in sampler mode. So I already have this in source C. I have a continuous, see that loop crossfade button. That's only available if you have something brought in sample mode and with a loop mode of continuous or sustain. You cannot do it for forward and back. Actually you can. Anything other than none, basically, then I stand corrected. But let's see, what you do with that crossfade button is gonna enable this little guy here. That's your actual crossfade region, and for some reason it's not letting me scroll. It's acting weird, so my apologies. There you go. You have to move both to be able. It's a little bit weird to me still, but bear with me. You can experiment on your own also. That's going to enable your crossfade, and then the crossfade marker, you can mark where your crossfade region is going to be at. In sampler mode, you can get some click when your sounds in each loop are restarting, and this is useful for that to crossfade between those two weird points that sometimes are created from loop regions. It's going to crossfade and eliminate those. Loops in any other mode are resynthesized in such a way that should not have any click. However, that's not to say that there can be any tonal differences that may affect the crispness of the loop. And by that I mean that you can get a region that sounds very obvious as a loop, or it might be annoying to some people because it may be quieter at the beginning and then a higher volume the rest of the way. So it's gonna be obvious that you're looping that same thing, but it's not continuous, you know, doesn't have that flow. So keep that in mind. And well, I think I covered everything, and yeah. So in the next video, then I'm gonna be talking about the additive window and some of the partial controls and the envelope. That's gonna be, I'm gonna try to time manage it as well. However, it might be a little bit intimidating, a lot of buttons, but again, I'm trying to break it down to such a level that is very understandable in simpler terms so that you don't feel afraid of experimenting on your own. It's really nothing much you can do when you have waveforms. You can reshape them, and unless you know exactly what the output is going to be, you are pretty much experimenting, because you have so many other parameters in the background already playing that only practice is going to take you there. So that's just a note to keep in mind. Thanks for your support as usual. Thanks for all the other new subscribers from this week. And if this is the first time that you see one of my videos, please subscribe, comment, like, share, make requests. If you want to see my other work, the contacts are below on this little graphic at the bottom of the video where all my social contacts are. You can see the rest of my work. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, YouTube.